Great. All right, I'm gonna get my presentation up. Can everybody see this? You'll have to tell me because I can't see anyone at the moment.
Don't see the presentation yet.
Oh, right. Actually, I see what I did here. Hang on, I'm getting there. Okay. Now you should see it.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Makayla. Thank you for joining. I'm going to tell you about my year with Pepperwood Preserve. So a quick little background on Pepperwood. Pepperwood is a nonprofit located in Santa Rosa, California, kind of to the east. It's a 3,200 acre nature preserve located in Wapo territory. And it's home to an abundance of species. We have a wide array of plant communities, some really interesting geology, so a really exciting and diverse place. Pepperwood serves as a living laboratory that inspires conservation through science, and we're active in community engagement, education. We have programs for young school children. We have programs for teenagers and adults alike. We also do research and stewardship, a variety of research and stewardship projects out here. Recently, Pepperwood experienced two large wildfires, the Tubbs Fire in 2017 and the Kincaid Fire in 2019. The Tubbs Fire burned about 95% of Pepperwood, and the Kincaid Fire burned approximately 65% of Pepperwood. So all of Pepperwood has burned in the last 5 years, at least once, some places twice, and then when you include prescribed fire on top of that, we're talking about multiple fires in the last 5 years. The reason why that is so relevant is because it's really shaped our attitudes about fire. We have really kind of turned the sails on how we're approaching fire, how we're approaching conversations, education, research, and stewardship as it relates to fire. So it's become a lot of what Pepperwood does, a lot of what Pepperwood thinks about. It's not all of Pepperwood, it's not the entirety of Pepperwood, but considering that's very much the way that things are heading in California in particular, but just generally around the world with climate change and everything, that's definitely what we've been thinking about more and more. So as far as my path to GrizzlyCorps, my path, I think, is unique in that I already was around Pepperwood, knowledgeable about Pepperwood prior to starting up with GrizzlyCorps. So I started off volunteering, interning, and eventually working seasonally. I first stepped foot on Pepperwood in 2016. I was an undergrad. I had just come to Sonoma County for the first time from the Sacramento Valley. I was looking for places to volunteer, hike around, just places to kind of experience the county more. And a person who became a mentor of mine, she was actually leading an internship that I was a part of at a different organization. And she was always name dropping Pepperwood. She was always wearing the Pepperwood swag. She had actually been doing research, some of her graduate research out at Pepperwood. So I said, I got to get out to this place sometime and see it. So I think it was September or October of 2016. I came and I just immediately fell in love, and I said, I got to get more involved in this place. So I subsequently was a part of the California Naturalist Certification Program that was at that time put on by the Santa Rosa Junior College. We currently have a California Naturalist Certification Program that's put on through Pepperwood, but that certification course was another way to get further involved in Pepperwood, get more knowledgeable about both the biotic and abiotic factors at the preserve. I then did the conservation science internship. That was my last semester in my undergraduate career, where we cataloged wildlife photos. So wildlife photo data from around Pepperwood and also at neighboring properties as well. And then finally, I graduated. I worked a couple of different jobs, and then eventually did seasonal work with UC Berkeley's Ackerley Lab. They do a variety of work, especially forestry type work at Pepperwood, which then got me further in the door. I met with the preserve ecologist, got to know the preserve ecologist at Pepperwood more, and she actually needed help that was pretty relevant to what Berkeley had been doing also at Pepperwood. So I said, sure, I'll hop right on board. Then with GrizzlyCorps coming along, with Pepperwood being able to get a GrizzlyCorps fellow, it was an opportunity for me to get on board in a more full-time capacity, which was incredibly exciting for me. I was going to be doing a lot of the work that I had already been doing at Pepperwood, and I was also going to be able to expand Pepperwood's capacity with existing projects and with projects that were kind of in the works. So through GrizzlyCorps, I was able to be placed with Pepperwood's Research and Preserve Management Team, also known as RPM Team, for another acronym for all you people who love acronyms out there. So a little bit of what I've been up to the last year. I've gotten to work with some amazing volunteers. Pepperwood is super fortunate to have a solid base of volunteers that come around and do a variety of things, from research tasks, stewardship tasks, education. On the right-hand side, we have people planting grass plugs for some of our stewardship in our burn pile placements. On the left-hand side, we have 3 phenology volunteers. Pepperwood has a phenology project that we've been doing for the last few years. I've been pretty heavily involved in that project through the last year. Basically, what we do is we have designated plants at a couple of trails at Pepperwood that we keep track of their biological life cycles, their phenology. So who's leafing, who's flowering, who's fruiting, how many of the flowers, if there are any flowers, are open, how many of the fruits are ripe. Is it leafing at all? Is it, how is the plant looking over time? And this is very relevant, especially with something like climate change and with weather changes and things like that. If we've had, for example, a historic drought year or something like that, we can kind of look at these biological life cycles and compare them to what is happening with the plants and how that may be affecting the fruiting, flowering, etc. of plants. On the lower side, kind of toward the center, we have coverboard monitoring project, which I will explain a little bit more later. And then at the bottom left-hand side, this is actually a workday that just happened on Saturday and I was a part of. It's a pretty good example there of how many volunteers we get at some of our workdays. So there are about 28 that day. And actually, if Pauline is still in attendance, our GrizzlyCorps fellow Pauline, her parents are 2 dedicated volunteers that they were there at this day. So always great having that like small world feel of like knowing people who are kind of connected to GrizzlyCorps as well. Now, I have also been involved in the grassland monitoring, and excitingly enough, this was my 2nd year doing grassland monitoring at Pepperwood. So basically, Pepperwood has upwards of 30 grassland monitoring transects that we survey each year for the first 2 weeks of May. And what these surveys do is they help us to understand diversity, species composition, disturbances, potential effects of disturbances in our grasslands. So what these upwards of 30 transects are 2 T-posts about 50, 55 meters apart. We run transect tape, which you could see, if you could see on my pointer, this hanging off my chest is this transect tape. This is an example of all the gear that we carry out for this monitoring. And we run the transect tape from one T-post to the other. And what I, in my role, do, myself and the preserve manager, what we do at the transects is we will do the species-specific information. So we'll ID just in a specific corner of these quadrats and get an idea of the cover of the different species and kind of specifics about who we're seeing in those corners of those quadrats. And then on the right-hand side, the photo on the right-hand side, you can see these folks are actually looking at general overall cover regarding exotic perennials, exotic annuals, native perennials, also getting an idea of how much of that entire quadrat is covered with bare ground, how much of it is rock. Is there any disturbance that's obvious, maybe a gopher mound or a cow hoof punch or something like that. So again, this really helps us get better information about how our grasslands are doing, especially when we compare it to events like wildfires and also different management strategies like grazing. Forest monitoring, I've definitely been heavily involved in our forest monitoring at Pepperwood. So to better understand our forests, we have a kind of a similar system in that we have various transects. In this case, we have plots set up. So to better understand our forests, we monitor trees, herbaceous plants, herpetofauna, which is reptiles and amphibians, and mammals in our forest plots. So what we do here, this is just an example, a diagram that's an example of what you kind of see. So if you can imagine this on top of a forest, basically we have these plots set up. Obviously it's in a forest, so there are trees throughout the plots. We have those all tagged. We keep track of what's going on, their general health, their canopy cover, the species, things like that. And again, we track them over time. At the center, we have a wildlife camera and a hobo data logger. The wildlife camera is running running every day, all the time, taking photos as we go along. And the hobo data logger measures things like temperature, relative humidity. We also have seedling plots here where we'll look at how many seedlings of different trees to get an idea of the next generation coming up. And then we have it parceled off into subplot versus macro plot, et cetera. And we do different things based on what area of the plot we're in. We also have herbaceous transects where we look at herbaceous species. We also look at fuels along those transects. So a pretty robust project that we have here. A lot of work that goes into it. Forest monitoring. This is just some photos of the forest monitoring. The cover boards at the bottom center. This is me. I just had flipped that cover board. I was documenting what I had seen. These surveys go on December through June when we would expect to see the most herpetofauna, reptile and amphibian activity. And then I'm running a fuels transect or doing fuels on the left-hand side, and the photo on the right, I'm running a transect tape. There's a lot of transect tape running in this in the time at Pepperwood. We also hosted Springfest, which serendipitously took place on Earth Day. We pulled an invasive weed called oblong spurge, and again, serendipitously, Devin Friedfeld, the assistant preserve manager, found this mega patch of spurge the day before Springfest. So we kind of had another plan for the day, and then we sort of rerouted because with so many hands on deck, he was super happy. We were all very happy to have everyone's help knocking out that site that would have taken a ton of time with, you know, the 3 sets of hands we would have had otherwise or something. So we pulled the oblong spurge, then we built burn piles, and we did get the chance to burn one as well. And we finished up the day with a trip to the iconic 3-Tree Hill to give people the full Pepperwood experience. A few other fun projects I've had the chance to get my hands in. I assisted, and a few members of the team in the installation of a weir, which is basically like a dam that measures stream flow. So in the case of, for example, a heavy rain event, we want to see how much stream flow comes as a result of that. Now this weir is in place to be able to measure that and monitor it as we go along and how it might change through the season. On the right-hand side, that's a California red-sided garter snake. I was able to join a researcher who's looking at snake fungal disease in California. That's a fungal disease that is more prevalent on the East Coast and more problematic on the East Coast, and often results in fatalities for snakes. So people in California are curious what we're seeing as far as snake fungal disease here. So in this case, she was able to collect she was able to capture a red-sided garter snake. She swabbed it, took some measurements, and then sent it on its merry way. So it was very interesting to be a part of that project and exciting. Thankfully, the snake looked pretty healthy. No visual evidence of snake fungal disease. So another cool thing that I had no idea about, but through Pepperwood and through GrizzlyCorps, I got the chance to be a part of that. And then finally, at the bottom center, we have a researcher from UC Berkeley's Ackerley lab doing, well, in this case, she's using a pressure bomb, which I'll explain in a second, but they had this big live fuel moisture campaign, which took place. There were a few days of surveys in, I think, September or October of this last year, and then a couple days of surveys earlier in June, about a month ago. So what we basically did, we had pre-dawn surveys and we had midday surveys. So we clipped plant tissues at around 3:30 or 4 in the morning. And we also went out and clipped plant tissues at around, I would say, 1 or so in the afternoon. And basically what we're doing is we're looking at the differences when there's full light and photosynthesis versus kind of a state of stasis at night when there's no blue light at all. So we clipped the plant tissues. We weighed some of them before drying, and then we dried some of them and weighed them after drying to get an idea of moisture within the live fuel. And then what we also did was we used what in this picture is an instrument called a Schoeller's pressure bomb. And what you do is you put some plant tissues into this chamber, you add nitrogen to the chamber, and then you see how much pressure it takes to get the plant to finally open up and release water from its tissues, which is relevant for drought resistance and things like that. Kind of how much pressure can it take before it will finally release water from its tissues. And live fuel moisture is really relevant to kind of fire danger, fire risk. If there was to be a fire that came through and burned live fuel tissues, how much moisture is in the tissues to kind of be able to kind of hold on and not burn. And then, so that was kind of what we did twice in a row, or twice, once in September, October, and then in June. Really exciting project, really cool to be a part of that. One of the awesome things that I was also to be a part of was the cultural burn in June. That was on June 13th, so just that last month. I did the S-130 training with the Good Fire Alliance. So I got to be involved with this cultural burn, which is a 26.5 acre grassland burn where we were targeting an invasive grass called Medusa head. So this burn unit also included 2 grassland monitoring transects, which is cool because we have long-term data before this prescribed burn, and we'll also have long-term data after this prescribed burn. And I want to just give a huge shout out to Devin Friedfield, the assistant preserve manager, who did a ton of work on this burn, building the fire line, getting everything coordinated. I also want to thank Pepperwood's Native Advisory Council, which gave their blessing support all along the way. And then Sasha Burlman, the burn boss, as well as volunteers and fire crews who really helped this kind of go off without a hitch. A few reflections and conclusions. So I learned a ton through working with really fascinating people. I gained a lot of confidence, skills, and memories through all these experiences that I've had. And I also learned on a deeper level, which sounds kind of obvious, but science can be complicated, but it is really vital to understanding the world around us. So kind of through these experiences, I learned as many times as people seem to want to have a knee-jerk reaction about whatever it is, climate change or certain stewardship practices or something, science kind of sits there as sort of put the money where your mouth is type of thing, like the actual data, the statistics, the analysis that go into these projects to actually show us what's going on and give us real evidence to what is out there. So I kind of learned that on a deeper level by being able to go and get boots on the ground and see how it's all done. And I also learned what sounds better than 1 year at Pepperwood. Well, 2 years at Pepperwood. So I'm doing a second term at Pepperwood through GrizzlyCorps. Thankfully, I've been given that option. My hopes for the next term are to do more GIS and analysis work. I didn't get the chance to do as much of this last year as I would have liked to, but there were just so many things going on that it didn't work out that way. I'd also love to find a cure for poison oak. I am rocking some of that right now. I want to have more exciting wildlife encounters for obvious reasons. It's pretty cool. But also just to continue to learn, grow, and get stuff done. That's kind of always what I've been trying to do at Pepperwood, been motivated to do every step of the way. Finally, some acknowledgements. I want to thank Pepperwood's RPM team, and honestly, everyone at Pepperwood has been super supportive and encouraging. Right from the get-go, people were involving me in things, important conversations. We're using words like we and us rather than kind of making me feel like a separate entity. So I'm very grateful to everyone at Pepperwood for that. I want to thank Eliza, Michelle, Stephanie, and all of the GrizzlyCorps fellows for really welcoming me and again, giving necessary support. The Good Fire Alliance for the fire training that I received, and UC Berkeley's Ackley Lab for all the training I received through them, and how much about Pepperwood I've learned through the lens of the Ackley Lab as well. And I have nothing else for you. So with that, I will take questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Makayla. That was amazing. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. I guess maybe my question is there going to be another fest that you'll host this upcoming year, Makayla?
Maybe if you beg and plead. No, we'll have 2. I should tell people too. We'll have 2 GrizzlyCorps fellows too on the RPM team, which is very exciting. So definitely can make that happen.